The champagne glass slipped from Amara's trembling fingers, shattering across the marble floor of the grand ballroom in Accra. 2,000 eyes turned toward her as the spotlight found her face on the massive screen above the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, "the new CEO of Okonkwo Industries, the woman behind the Trillionaire empire, Ms. Amara Okonkwo." Across the room, she watched her ex-husband Chike's face drain of color. Beside him, her former best friend Ngozi clutched his arm, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. They had divorced her 6 months ago, believing she was penniless. They had mocked her at her own mother's funeral, thrown her out with nothing but the clothes on her back. Now she owned everything, including the company Chike worked for. "No," Chike whispered, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "That's impossible. Her mother was just a seamstress. Just a—" Amara lifted her chin, her custom Diola Sago gown shimmering under the lights like liquid gold. She smiled, the kind of smile that had made ruthless businessmen across 3 continents nervous in boardroom negotiations. "Hello, Chike," she said into the microphone, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. "We need to talk about your severance package." "Hello, guys. Welcome to my African Tales. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? 6 months earlier, the rain fell like tears over Ikoyi Cemetery in Lagos, turning the red earth into rivers of mud that stained Amara's simple black dress. She stood alone at her mother's graveside, clutching a single white lily, as the last mourners hurried to their cars. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why did you leave me?" Her phone buzzed. Once. Twice. 17 times. She ignored it, letting the rain wash over her face, mixing with her tears. Her mother, Chinua Okonkwo, had been everything to her, her rock, her friend, her only family after her father died when she was 7. They had lived simply in their 2-bedroom flat in Surulere. Her mother had worked as a seamstress, hunched over her sewing machine late into the night, creating beautiful clothes for wealthy Lagos women who never knew her name. They'd had enough, never too much, and Amara had learned to be grateful for small blessings. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find Chike, her husband of 5 years, holding an umbrella that didn't quite cover them both. His expensive agbada was already soaked. "We need to go," he said, his voice flat. "No warmth. No comfort. Just a few more minutes," Amara pleaded. Amara, I'm not standing in the rain all day. Ngozi is waiting in the car." Her best friend. Of course Ngozi was there. Ngozi had been there for everything these past few months, more present than Chike actually, making funeral arrangements, holding Amara when she cried, handling the endless phone calls. What would she have done without Ngozi? As they walked toward the parking lot, Amara's phone buzzed again. She finally looked at it. 32 missed calls from an unknown number. A text message appeared. "Mrs. Okonkwo, this is Barrister Okafor. Your mother's will reading is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. at our offices in Victoria Island. Your presence is mandatory. This is a matter of extreme urgency and confidentiality." "Who keeps calling you?" Chike asked, irritation sharp in his voice. "My mother's lawyer. The will reading is tomorrow." Chike's step faltered almost imperceptibly. Something flickered across his face. Was that excitement? But when she blinked, his expression was neutral again. "There's probably nothing," he said. "Your mother lived simply." At the wake, held in the small sitting room of their flat, neighbors and friends brought jollof rice and puff-puff, sharing stories of Chinyu's kindness. Amara sat in the corner, numb, watching Chike and Ngozi huddled together by the window, whispering. When the last guest left, Chike didn't come to bed. He sat at their small dining table, staring at his phone, jaw clenched. Amara approached him, desperate for connection, for the husband who used to hold her when she couldn't sleep. "Chike, can we talk? I really need." Not now, Amara. But I'm hurting, and I just need my husband to. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You know what? I can't do this anymore. Her heart stopped. Can't do what? This. Us. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and threw it on the table. I want a divorce. The world tilted. Amara grabbed the table edge to steady herself. What? Chike, my mother just died. Is this a joke? I'm in love with Ngozi. I have been for a while now. We're getting married. The words didn't make sense. They were sounds without meaning, like a language she'd never learned. Ngozi? My best friend. I'm sorry about your mother, I really am. But I can't keep pretending. I'll move out tonight. Sign the papers, Amara. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He walked out of their bedroom with a packed suitcase. Packed before the wake, she realized with horror. He'd planned this. While she was burying her mother, he'd been packing his bags. Amara collapsed onto the floor, her sobs echoing in the empty flat. In one day, she'd lost everything. Her mother, her husband, her best friend. Her entire world had crumbled into dust. Her phone buzzed again. The lawyer. Mrs. Okonkwo, please confirm your attendance tomorrow. Your mother left specific instructions. Everything depends on you being there. Through her tears, Amara typed back. I'll be there. She had nothing left to lose anyway. The law offices of Okafor and Associates occupied the entire 20th floor of a gleaming tower in Victoria Island. Amara had taken an Okada to get there, her last 2,000 naira barely covering the fare. She wore the same black dress from the funeral, now stained with mud and tears. The receptionist looked at her with barely concealed disdain. Name? Amara Okonkwo. I'm here for my mother's will reading. The woman's expression changed instantly, from contempt to shock to something that looked almost like fear. Mrs. Okonkwo. Oh my God. We've been trying to reach you. Please come with me immediately. She was led down a corridor lined with expensive art to a massive corner office. Behind a mahogany desk sat a distinguished man in his 60s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed. He stood when she entered, and to her surprise, bowed slightly. Mrs. Okonkwo. I'm Barrister Okafor. Please, accept my deepest condolences for your loss. Your mother was an extraordinary woman. Thank you, Amara said quietly, sinking into the leather chair he offered. I don't understand why this is so urgent. My mother didn't have much. There's the flat, some jewelry maybe. Mrs. Okonkwo, the lawyer interrupted gently. Your mother had considerably more than that. He opened a folder and slid a document across the desk. Amara looked down at the number, blinking. Then blinking again. Her brain couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. This says 1.7 trillion naira. That's impossible. There must be a mistake. There's no mistake. Your mother, Chinua Okonkwo, was one of the wealthiest women in Africa. She owned Okonkwo Industries, a conglomerate that includes tech companies, real estate holdings across 12 African nations, telecommunications networks, and substantial offshore investments. She founded it 40 years ago with a single textile factory. The room spun. Amara gripped the armrests of her chair. No. My mother was a seamstress. We lived in Trillionaire in a 2-bedroom flat. We took Danfo buses. I wore second-hand uniforms to school. You have the wrong person. Barrister Okafor's expression softened. He pressed a button on his desk, and a screen descended from the ceiling. A video began to play. Her mother's face appeared, alive and vibrant, sitting in this very office. Amara's breath caught in her throat. My darling Amara, her mother's recorded voice said, and Amara broke down sobbing. If you're watching this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry. I know you're confused and hurt, and you're probably angry with me too. You deserve to be. On screen, her mother wiped away a tear. I need you to understand why I kept this from you. When your father died, I made a promise to him that I would raise you with real values, not privilege that corrupts. I wanted you to know struggle, so you'd have compassion. To know hard work, so you'd appreciate what you earned. To stand on your own so you'd never need anyone else's validation. I watched you, my precious daughter, become exactly the woman I prayed you'd be. Kind, strong, humble, educated not just in books, but in life. You worked 2 jobs to finish university while I could have written a check. You married for love, not money. You stayed true to yourself. Her mother leaned closer to the camera. The wealth is yours now. All of it. But more than that, I'm giving you power. Power to change lives. Power to build the Africa we both dreamed of. And power to deal with those who might not have had your best interests at heart. The video ended. Amara sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. She knew, Amara whispered. About Chike and Ngozi? Barrister Okafor nodded gravely. Your mother had them investigated 6 months ago. She discovered they were having an affair and planning to manipulate you after her death. They believed rumors about her wealth and thought they could position themselves to access it through you. That's why she accelerated the will preparation and left specific instructions. He slid another folder across the desk. Inside were photographs, Chike and Ngozi together at hotels, bank statements showing money he'd stolen from their joint account, WhatsApp messages planning their betrayal. The dates went back 2 years. Your mother wanted you to understand your worth before you learned your net worth. She wanted you to see who people truly were when they thought you had nothing. Now you know. Amara's shock was hardening into something else. Something cold and sharp. Chike works at Data Tech Solutions, doesn't he?
Yes.
A subsidiary of Okonkwo Industries. Amara finished. She looked up at the lawyer, and her mother's steel was in her eyes now. Tell me everything I need to know. 3 months after the will reading, Amara stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror in a luxury penthouse apartment overlooking Banana Island. She barely recognized herself. Her natural hair, which she'd always worn in simple styles, was now shaped into an elegant afro. Her skin glowed from treatments she'd once thought unnecessary. The designer pantsuit she wore cost more than she used to make in a year. But the biggest change wasn't physical, it was in her eyes. They held power now. Purpose. Madam, your 10 o'clock is here, her new assistant, Zainab, announced from the doorway. Send them in. 3 people entered. Barrister Okafor, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, and a young man with intelligent eyes behind designer glasses. Mrs. Okonkwo, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Folake Adeyemi, your mother's chief operating officer. This is David Mensah, head of strategic acquisitions. We've been managing operations during the transition period, and we're ready to bring you up to speed. For the next 6 hours, they walked Amara through her empire. She learned about telecommunications towers from Lagos to Nairobi, real estate developments in Accra and Johannesburg, tech startups in Rwanda, and investments that touched virtually every sector of African business. Your mother was a genius, Folake explained, pulling up presentations on a large screen. She saw Africa's potential before anyone else. While others were investing in Europe and America, she built here. And now, with what she's created, you could shape policy across the continent if you chose to. I want to learn everything, Amara said. Not just the business. I want to understand strategy, negotiation, corporate warfare. Everything my mother knew. David smiled. She said you'd say that. We have a program ready. The training was brutal. Amara spent 16-hour days learning financial analysis, contract law, international business, and the art of negotiation. She sat in on board meetings, shadowing executives who ran billion-naira operations. She learned to read people, to spot lies, to play chess while others played checkers. At night, alone in her penthouse, she studied the files on Chike and Ngozi. Her lawyers had uncovered more, so much more. Chike had been systematically stealing from their joint account for 18 months. Ngozi had befriended her specifically on Chike's instructions 3 years ago after he learned where Amara's mother lived and started digging for information. They'd played the long game. Now it was her turn. I want Data Tech Solutions, she told her acquisition team one morning. Quietly. Use shell companies. I don't want anyone to know Okonkwo Industries is behind it until we own 51%. That's your ex-husband's company, Folake said carefully. Are you sure? I'm certain. The acquisition took 6 weeks. Data Tech is bored. Struggling with debt, Amara had secretly helped worsen through strategic maneuvers, jumped at the buyout offer. By the time anyone realized what had happened, Amara owned the company, and therefore controlled Chaik's career. She made her first board appearance via video conference, her face hidden in shadow. Effective immediately. We're restructuring management. Review all executive-level employees for performance. Cut anyone who isn't exceeding expectations. 3 days later, Chaik was called into his manager's office. Through sources she'd cultivated, Amara heard every word. Chaik, your performance has been adequate, but our new owners demand excellence. We're letting you go. What? I've worked here for 7 years. I've brought in major clients. That you've also overcharged, according to our audit. There will be no severance. Security will escort you out. That night, Amara allowed herself a small smile. But she wasn't done. Not even close. She had 5 companies preparing acquisition offers for Ngozi's fashion boutique, each offer strategically designed to fail at the last minute, destroying Ngozi's expansion plans and creditworthiness. She had investigators digging into every corner of both their lives. And she had an invitation being prepared for the annual African Business Summit in Accra, the most prestigious gathering of entrepreneurs, investors, and power players on the continent. Chaik and Ngozi would be there. They'd spent their last savings on tickets, hoping to network their way back to success. Amara would be there too, as the keynote speaker. The whispers started 2 weeks before the Accra summit. Someone new was shaking up African business, buying companies, restructuring entire sectors, making moves that rippled across markets. But no one knew who they were. The mysterious new CEO of Okonkwo Industries remained hidden behind lawyers and video conferences. Speculation ran wild. Some said it was a Chinese consortium. Others thought it was a European hedge fund. No one suspected the truth. In Lagos, Chaik was drowning. After being fired from Data Tech, he'd burned through his savings in 3 months. The jobs he applied for mysteriously fell through at the final stage. Contracts he was promised never materialized. It was as if someone had blacklisted him, but he couldn't figure out who or why. It doesn't make sense, he told Ngozi over a cheap beer in a bar far from their former haunts. I'm good at what I do. Why can't I get hired? Ngozi wasn't faring much better. Her boutique expansion had collapsed when 5 different investors pulled out simultaneously. Her suppliers were demanding cash up front instead of the credit terms she'd always received. Banks that had courted her business now rejected her loan applications. Maybe we moved too fast, she said, but doubt flickered in her eyes. Maybe divorcing Amara right after her mother died was bad luck. Don't be superstitious, Chaik snapped. Amara has nothing to do with this. She's probably still crying in that little flat, living off whatever pittance her mother left her. But at night, Chaik had dreams where Amara's eyes stared at him with knowledge he couldn't understand. He'd wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, feeling like prey being stalked by something he couldn't see. The summit invitation arrived like a lifeline. Ngozi had purchased tickets months ago, back when they thought they'd be celebrating their success. Now it represented their last chance to network, to rebuild, to connect with investors who might give them another shot. We'll make it work, Ngozi said, forcing optimism into her voice. Everyone who's anyone will be there. We just need one good connection, one investor who believes in us. Meanwhile, in Accra, Amara stood on the balcony of her hotel suite at the Kempinski, watching the city lights. Tomorrow night, the masks would come off. Tomorrow night, they'd know. The stage is set, Folklore said behind her. Security is briefed. The media is positioned. Are you ready? Tell me again what we found, Amara said quietly. Folklore pulled out her tablet. Beyond the affair and the financial theft, we discovered that Chaik and your friend Ngozi have been running a longer con. After your father died, when your mother moved you both to Trillionaire and started living modestly, rumors began circulating in certain circles that she'd hidden wealth from a business venture. Chaik discovered these rumors 7 years ago when he was working as a financial analyst. He researched your family, found you, and orchestrated your entire relationship. Ngozi was recruited 2 years into your marriage when he needed someone close to you for information. Every friendship, every intimate moment, all calculated. Amara's hands tightened on the balcony railing. And my mother knew? She suspected when Chaik started asking subtle questions about her past. That's when she hired investigators. She discovered everything, but chose not to intervene immediately. She wanted you to see their true natures when you had the power to respond. One more thing, Folklore added softly. We found evidence that Chaik planned to contest your mother's will. He was going to claim common-law marriage rights to your assets, arguing that what you inherited became community property during your marriage. He divorced you thinking your mother had left you nothing valuable, planning to remarry you later after reconciliation if the inheritance rumors proved true. Amara turned from the balcony, her face unreadable. Then tomorrow, let's give them the truth they tried so hard to steal. The grand ballroom of the Kempinski Hotel Accra glittered with African excellence. 2,000 of the continent's most powerful people filled the space, entrepreneurs who'd built empires, investors controlling billions, politicians, celebrities, and changemakers. The air hummed with ambition and champagne. Chaik and Ngozi entered nervously, their bargain rack formal, where standing out among the designer gowns and custom suits. They'd married quietly 2 months ago in a civil ceremony, neither family attending. Tonight was supposed to be their comeback. There's the president of the Ghana Investment Authority, Ngozi whispered, gripping Chaik's arm. If we could just get 5 minutes with her? Let me handle it, Chaik said, but his confidence was brittle. He'd been rejected so many times lately. What if? The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice boomed through the speakers. Tonight we have a very special announcement. For decades, Okonkwo Industries has been a cornerstone of African business, operating quietly but powerfully across our continent. Founded by the late Chinua Okonkwo, it has remained privately held, with its leadership unknown to the public. Chaik's attention sharpened. Okonkwo? Like Amara's mother? But that was impossible. That seamstress couldn't have. Tonight, for the first time, we reveal the face of Africa's most mysterious business empire. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new CEO of Okonkwo Industries and one of the wealthiest individuals on our continent, Ms. Amara Okonkwo. The spotlight hit the stage. Amara emerged from behind a curtain, and the room exploded in applause. She wore a golden gown by Diola Sego that seemed to capture every light in the room, her natural hair styled in a crown, her bearing royal. This was the moment from the cold open, Chaik's champagne glass slipping from his hand, shattering on marble as his world shattered with it. No, he whispered, the color draining from his face. That's impossible. Her mother was just a seamstress. Ngozi couldn't speak at all. She swayed on her feet, gripping the table for support, watching the woman she'd betrayed command a stage in front of Africa's elite. Amara's eyes swept the room and landed on them. She smiled, calm, powerful, and utterly in control. Good evening, she said into the microphone. Thank you all for being here. My mother taught me that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in character. She spent my entire childhood testing that principle, and I'm grateful for those lessons. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. She also taught me to recognize those who value wealth over character, who see relationships as transactions, who believe loyalty is negotiable. Her gaze never left Chaik and Ngozi. Tonight, I want to talk about the future of African business, built on integrity, authenticity, and real partnership. For 30 minutes, Amara spoke about her vision, investing in African tech, empowering women entrepreneurs, building sustainable infrastructure. The audience was mesmerized. Here was a new kind of leader, young, brilliant, and deeply rooted in African values. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. As the crowd began to mingle, Chaik stumbled toward the exit, but security blocked his path. A woman in a sharp suit approached him. Mr. Chaik Okafor? I'm Folklore Adeyemi, COO of Okonkwo Industries. Mrs. Okonkwo would like a word. In private, they were escorted to a private conference room. Amara sat at the head of a long table, flanked by lawyers. The woman they'd discarded like garbage now held their entire futures in her hands. Sit, Amara said calmly. They sat. I own Data Tech Solutions, Amara began. The company that fired you, Chike. I also control the investment consortium that destroyed Ngozi's expansion plans. The banks that rejected your loans? I sit on their boards. The jobs you couldn't get? I made calls. Chike's face went from pale to gray. Amara, please, I can explain. I have evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. I have WhatsApp messages going back 3 years. I have proof that your entire relationship with me was a calculated con. She slid folders across the table. I could have you both prosecuted. You'd spend years in prison. Ngozi started crying. We're sorry. We made mistakes. Please. Mistakes. Amara's voice was ice. You befriended me specifically to spy on my mother. You married me to position yourself for an inheritance. You divorced me at my mother's funeral. These weren't mistakes. They were choices. What do you want? Chike asked, his voice hollow. Amara leaned back in her chair, studying them. She thought of her mother's video, of the lessons about character and compassion. She thought about the woman she wanted to be, not defined by revenge, but by purpose. I want you to understand something, she said finally. My mother was right. The test wasn't about money. It was about who you really are when no one's watching. You both failed spectacularly. She stood, gathering her files. You want to know what I'm going to do? Nothing. I'm not pressing charges. I'm not destroying you further. You've done that to yourselves. Your reputations are ruined. Your businesses are failed. Your marriage is built on betrayal and greed. That's punishment enough. But if I ever hear that you've tried to scam anyone else, if you come near me or anyone I care about, if you breathe my name in public, then I will use every resource I have to make sure you face the full consequences of your actions. Are we clear? They nodded, too broken to speak. Good. Now get out of my sight. As security escorted them out, Folake turned to Amara with approval. Your mother would be proud. You chose the high road. Amara looked out at the across skyline, feeling her mother's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. She gave me an empire, but more than that, she gave me the character to use it wisely. That's the real inheritance. She smiled, turning back to the party where 2,000 people waited to meet the newest force in African business. Now let's go change the continent. Outside, as Chike and Ngozi climbed into a taxi that would take them back to Lagos and their collapsed lives, Chike looked back at the glittering hotel. We had her, he whispered. We had everything, and we threw it away. Ngozi said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Inside, Amara raised a glass of champagne, surrounded by Africa's changemakers, and toasted to her mother, the seamstress who'd secretly ruled an empire and who'd raised a daughter worthy of inheriting it.